Hi, Gwen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Gilbert?
Great. Great to chat with you again. Maybe for some of the audience who have not heard much about your company, West Valley Gold, give us a bit of a background and quick overview of your company.
Yeah, for sure. So West Red Lake Gold is a company that's focused on the Madsen Mine, which is right in the middle of Canada in a place called Red Lake, Ontario. Madsen Mine produced 2 million ounces of gold in, decades past, and then sat quiet for many years when the gold price was low and nobody was doing anything much with it. Then a company picked it up in 2014, did a bunch of good work. Including permitting and building a new mill and defining a really good high-grade resource of 1.7 million ounces of 7.4 grams per ton gold. And then they put the mine into production. They weren't a team that has had deep experience doing that, and so they cut some corners on their way to production. And unfortunately, that meant that their approach didn't work. So the mine failed under that prior operator in a short period of time, after only 14 months. And that gave West Red Lake Gold the opportunity to buy a fully permitted, mostly built mine in a storied gold district with a 1.7 million ounce resource 2 years ago for sort of pennies on what had been invested in the project over the prior 8 years. And that gave us the pathway to go from purchase to production in just 2 years. It's really rare to be able to put any mining project into production quickly, and we were really excited about that opportunity. We've done a lot of work in those 2 years to address the things that went wrong the last time around, and we've really wrapped up a lot of that work the work that needed to happen before restart, and to the point that just last week, after completing a very successful test mining bulk sample program that gave us, the final check on the list, the to-do list, so to speak, and enabled us last week to announce the restart of the Madsen Mine. So we are now a new gold producer, ramping up production through the second half of 2025. And there's very few other companies that are putting new gold mines into production.
Great to hear. So I've listened to your talk at least a couple of times in recent months. In March, you came to our conference presenting. I can remember you mentioned about the restart probably will be the second half of this year. So it's sort of come to a surprise to the public, to investors, that you'll be able to do it early. So give me more details on how you come about to doing that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, really what we needed to do was make sure that the test mining bulk sample program did what it needed to do. And so we didn't want to promise early if something had gone wrong in that test mining bulk sample program. But nothing went wrong. In fact, that test mining and bulk sample program, the goal there was to test that all of the things that we're doing to make sure that we have an accurate model of what the gold looks like underground and appropriate ways of engineering and then mining that on that model. We wanted to test that worked. And so we had people come and watch us, independent auditors come and watch. They got to see what our model looks like, our engineering plans. They watched us mine it. They watched us restart our mill that had been shut down for 20-something months, 28 months. Process through the mill. And the goal then was to compare what the model said we would be able to mine, tons and gold grade, with what we actually pulled out of the ground, tons and gold grade. And those two things lined up almost perfectly. I mean, this is a high grade gold system, which means that there's a lot of what you call grade variability. So, there's a bunch of gold in one little spot and then maybe less and then more gold. You really need to have a very accurate, high resolution resource model to be able to mine it effectively. But the fact that our expected and actual lined up almost perfectly just validated our workflow. It said, yep, what we are doing will enable us to mine this deposit the way that it needs to be mined. And with that really important check mark in place, we were ready to go. And so, yeah, we did restart the mine just 5 or 6 weeks ahead of when we had promised to restart the mine. We said by the middle of the year, and we restarted it on the 22nd of May. So that was really gratifying to do. And now we will just, now we just have to keep going. All of that comparing expected and actual, we just need to repeat that every month as we ramp this thing up to continue demonstrating that our approach works and that we've unlocked the opportunity that, that we originally saw at this project.
Yes, and let's talk a bit about the share price here, because you've where it goes, which back to the 52-week high, almost around this point of time. So investors rewarded your company by seeing the progress rate from the last hurdle, and it's being crossed, and so that now you're restarting a production. So what's next for this company now? How long do investors need to see that production in order to reward you again or remake your company to the next stage?
Yeah, very good question for sure. So yes, we've seen some gains in the last couple of weeks, which has been nice to see. Starting with that bulk sample, I know there were people in the market who wanted to believe that everything that we were doing would work, but actually needed evidence. And so that's what those bulk sample results provided. And so yes, and then we restarted the mine, and we've also been putting out some really nice high-grade drill results from one particular part of the resource that's going to be sort of fairly near term in the mine plan, which is a good reminder for everyone that Red Lake is worth the effort. You got to do a lot of work to sort of mine this sort of deposit effectively. But if you do the work, then there's some really nice mineralization in the rocks of Red Lake. So that's sort of what has been happening. Your question, obviously, is a really important one. What's next? Well, I think the context here is that, generally speaking, a company that goes from building a mine to being a reliable gold producer, they should enjoy a different valuation as a reliable gold producer than they did as a company that was trying to get there, that was spending the money and doing the work to build a mine. And often that re-rate, so to speak, happens from when they decide to build a mine through to the first gold that they pour, or maybe a bit beyond that. The Madsen mine is a different beast. I mean, we bought it largely built, so we didn't have a construction decision to start from. And we had to demonstrate that we were fixing things that had gone wrong last time. So it just was a slightly different story. So for us, instead of that shift in valuation coming from construction decision to first gold or first quarter, maybe, or commercial production, we believe that there's good potential that shift will instead start with the bulk sample results and continue into the first few quarters of commercial production, which is just, like I say, continuing to demonstrate that we're doing it effectively and that it's going to produce the kinds of profitability that we say it can. So that suggests that the opportunity is laid out over the next year as we do that, as we successfully ramp this thing up, get into commercial production, start talking about costs and numbers and profitability. That's over the next year. And I mean, this also really important. Where does a re-rate generally take a company? Well, it starts from maybe 0.4. Developers are often valued at about 0.4 times the value of their asset. And it takes then, and producers are often valued at somewhere between 0.7 and 1 times the value of their asset. So that's the kind of re-rate. And we are just at the beginning of exactly that kind of bracketing of numbers right now. So I do think there's a good opportunity for us to earn that producer valuation as we demonstrate success ramping up. And as we do it, we also are working really hard to try and explain to the market why we believe Madsen will be a bigger mine than it was originally envisioned as just a year ago, not even a year ago. And so potentially that perceived value of the asset also has opportunity to grow, because this mine is a bigger thing. As we get in there, do the drilling, do the engineering, really see what the rocks have to offer, it's getting bigger as we go, which is really exciting for us.
Yes, and further to your last statement there, we know that, of course, Madsen has the potential to grow as you produce more, you can find more gold potentially. And what will be your sort of growth strategies in this sense, where because you know that being a single asset company can be not sort of too safe of a position for being a co-producer. You may want to look for others. So what's your comments on that? Anything that you can add on potentially in the pipeline to grow your asset?
Yes, for sure. So, I mean, we are very focused on making sure that our first mine ramps up successfully. But this isn't a team and a set of founding investors who their vision isn't limited, our vision isn't limited to operating one mine. The idea here was always to give investors that re-rate opportunity, that like unlocking of opportunity, whether it's going from developer to production, or whether it's finding a mine that could be more and unlocking that more, because our team has really good operating capabilities. We want to deliver that value growth to investors several times over. That's always been the philosophy of West Red Lake Gold. And so to do that, we're considering ways to make Madsen bigger, finding more on the project, potentially pulling in our nearby project called Rowan, seeing if that can add mill feed, looking for other deposits in the area that could potentially make Madsen into a bigger thing. So that's one side of the growth. And then on the other side, you're right, looking for a second asset is absolutely something that we are actively doing. There's no great time to, I like to use this analogy, get married or start a new job or have a baby, because, you know, there's never a good time to do big things like that. You have to do them when the opportunity presents. And so we are out there looking for the right opportunity, and we will be ready to move on that opportunity when it happens, because you're right. Having two assets is a better position. Being a larger gold producer in a gold market like this is a better opportunity for our investors, and delivering that value growth is just really a fundamental driver here. So those are all active conversations in this office on a daily basis.
Great. Thank you for really your sharing your latest developments of West Red Lake Gold to us. Will be continue following your story quite closely.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to catch up with you.
And again, congrats to the restart of Madsen Mine.
Thanks.
Take care. We'll talk later.
Okay, bye-bye.